So the kid who couldn't pronounce his name and was going to be pulled out of school and was getting made fun of constantly for not being able to pronounce his name, later on ended up being the only person to ever guest host for Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh on radio. I remember growing up, and my mother was so amazing. She always, got us the toys that we the one toy we really wanted from Santa. We used to go to a place called Toy Park. Toy Park. If you were really feeling like you wanted to be at the high temple of toy consumerism, you could go to FAO Schwartz, which I remember that was there was a song "Welcome to Our World of Toys." Would you go in there? I think that it's in the second Home Alone movie. It's definitely in Big with Tom Hanks. But you had to go and get these things, get these toys. I will say, at least now, for the parents out there, and for anybody who's getting gifts for family members or friends, it has gotten so much easier, right? You can go online, have it sent right to you, and takes a lot of that waiting in the long line and the stress. And because I remember last minute Christmas shopping and everyone rushing into the stores in New York City and long lines. And I just take a moment, because we often focus on what is more challenging in life and what has been made more difficult. But or what is getting more difficult. One thing that's getting a lot easier, you don't have parents who are getting into fisticuffs over Tickle Me Elmo dolls. Remember that? There would be like a really popular toy and it would get bought up, and then they would start going for really high prices, and people would be waiting in these lines. They get into fights over this stuff. So now, the downside is we all can enjoy the supply chain issues and the shortages that just magically have appeared under the Biden administration with no explanation. Don't worry, Mayor Pete's on it. Pete Buttigieg, he's going to fix it any moment now. He's got his best people on it. But no, seriously, at least you can sit at home and pretty much order whatever you want to order in terms of anything. I mean, if you want to order a Sherman tank that's been decommissioned, I think you could do that on Amazon. I mean, you got some pretty crazy stuff out there. And also, I usually around this time, because I started doing radio in 2012, so it's been a decade. And I started at The Blaze, and it was really an online stream on theblaze.com on Glenn Beck's network. So I always am very grateful to and wish Glenn a Merry Christmas and his family and his staff because Glenn gave me my start. And people of honor appreciate those who help them, and they never forget who helped them. So, but I started out at The Blaze, and by the way, Rush is obviously at the very top of that list because Rush let me fill in for him many times over the years, starting in 2014 up until I became syndicated myself a few years after that. So I started radio a decade ago. And one of the stories that I always told people, because I was just talking about parents a moment ago, is that I did not start out, because my birthday is also on December 28th, so throwing it all out there right now. I did not start out at all in life as somebody who you'd think would have a career in media, particularly wouldn't have a career in radio. But I had a speech impediment, which was very complicated for, I was second grade was when I was really aware of it. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And people always ask, it was and I believe it's called an enunciation disorder. I had to see a speech therapist for a couple of years. And my parents never gave up on me. They never gave up on me. I would go and introduce myself to my classmates and to, kids in the playground. You show up and you just kick a ball around or something in the playground, and someone would say, what's your name? And I would say, and this is true, and my mom is probably laughing if she hears this, I would say, well, not laughing, but, sort of smiling about what I had to overcome. But I would tell people my name was Butt. Now, you can imagine when you're a first and second grader and you're trying to pronounce your own name and you tell a little kid, your peer, that your name is Butt, they tend to think that is very funny. I did not think it was very funny. I obviously thought it was mortifying, although I didn't know what that word meant then. But I was not. It was not a fun situation or circumstance for me. And I also, because of the lack of confidence from being a kid who couldn't pronounce his own name, which was the situation that I was in. My middle name is Buckman, which is where it comes from. But Buckman is no easier than Buck. So, calling myself Buttman was not going to be better than calling myself Butt, really. So that was the that was the challenge that I faced. So I went into speech therapy, but also was falling far behind in class to the point where they thought I was going to have to be in a special school for learning disabilities. But it wasn't even really a learning disability. It was more of a behavioral disability brought on by my speech impediment, which was obviously a major challenge. So because I couldn't speak like the other kids, and this wasn't just my name, obviously, a lot of words, consonants, I would think I was saying it the right way, but I wasn't. And it didn't really register with me. So they were going to have to pull me out of, well, at one point there was a consideration of pulling me out of school to send me to a special school. And my mom and dad never lost faith. They kept pushing and kept encouraging me. And we had a woman, her name was, she has since passed away. Her name was Mrs. Newfield. And she gave me extra tutoring after class. And I went to speech therapy. And by the time I was in the 4th or 5th grade, I had advanced so far beyond my classmates in the Catholic school I went to in New York that they started actually in some of the courses giving me extra work and gave me a slightly different curriculum. And I graduated because you have to apply to high school in New York. Top of my grammar school class, but actually got a 4-year scholarship, which was at the time a $100,000 scholarship to go to high school at Regis in New York City, which is also where Fauci went. So I turned things around, and then later on, you all know I went to CIA and came out. Wasn't looking to do media at all. Was really just looking to expand my skill set, maybe get into the private sector. Wasn't really sure, and Glenn and the Blaze came along and gave me an opportunity that I wasn't even looking for, but I did recognize it as a huge opportunity when it came along. So, always appreciate that from Glenn and from Chris Balfe, who also found me early on then and is still doing a lot of good work with a lot of very good people in the media space. So, yeah. So the kid who couldn't pronounce his name and was going to be pulled out of school and was getting made fun of constantly for not being able to pronounce his name, later on ended up being the only person to ever guest host for Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh on radio. I guest hosted all 3 of those shows over the years, and was guest hosting for Rush, the greatest of all time, within 3 years of my radio career starting. So this is all a way of saying to the parents out there, because I know we're going into the holiday break, and a lot of parents have had still dealing with the very tough time from the COVID lockdowns and what that did, and the learning loss and the psychological and social duress that put kids under. There is no replacement for, nor is there any ceiling to the benefits of parents who never give up on the kids, never give up on their ability, their dreams, their willingness to stick it out if you'll stick it out. That's what I've seen. That's what I saw in my own life, but I'm sure you see circumstances too. If parents have your back, you will get through and you can accomplish anything. That is really the case. And that includes also anybody who's, if you're a grandparent who's a guardian for somebody, or if you're raising someone, if they know that you've got them no matter what, that they've got your back no matter what, you can go from being a kid who can't pronounce his name and all the kids are making fun of, to sitting here doing radio on the biggest radio platform in the United States of America. So, Merry Christmas, everybody.